We're here with the highlights from the 2017 Detroit Auto Show. Next on Talking Cars. Hi everybody and welcome to Talking Cars with Consumer Reports. I'm John Lincove.
I'm Jake Fisher.
I'm Gabe Schenhauer.
And you may notice that we're here at the Detroit Auto Show, and also known as the North American International Auto Show, not at the test track. Every year in January, assembled media from worldwide comes to Detroit to see what the newest products are for the model year and the model years ahead. We want to kick this off. Gabe, what were some of the vehicles that were the most important for Consumer Reports or readers and subscribers?
Okay, most important for Consumer Reports, for our subscribers, and for the market as well. Definitely the Toyota Camry. I mean, that car has been the best-selling car, not a truck, for many years.
Yeah, at least 15, right?
Yes, and it's a major player in the mid-sized family sedan arena. And then the Honda Odyssey, which has been really the
minivan, Honda Odyssey minivan.
Honda Odyssey minivan, very popular among our readers, very important in the market. It's the best-selling minivan out there, so that's pretty significant.
Jake, what did you think of the Camry when it was released? So we saw a couple different versions, including a hybrid, right?
Well, I mean, the Camry, look, I mean, yes, it's a really important vehicle. They sell a lot of them. You can't really go too far away from the tried and true with a car like that. You can't go.
It's their bread and butter vehicle.
It's bread and butter, and there's a reason people buy it. And what's interesting about the Camry is they don't buy it because of the flashy styling. They don't buy it because it's exciting. They buy it because it's reliable, and they know what they're going to get, and it's going to last forever, and all these different things. And I think it's so important for them to kind of stick with that, not have the flash. So what's interesting is what we didn't hear about it. We didn't hear about small displacement turbos. We didn't hear about,
10-speed automatic transmissions.
Exactly, and all these great things.
Well,
so
8-speed.
Yeah.
8-speed. We're inching up. But
Toyota's even late to the game with that, barely getting it into some of their products this year.
Right, there's no dual clutch, and so I mean, we're going to still have the 3.5 liter V6, which is they've done great. Toyota's done great with those, bulletproof, smooth, refined, efficient, all that. There's a little bit different styling, so you could see, hey, look, I've got the new Camry, I don't have the old one.
It is out there a little bit.
A little bit, especially in the XSE, right? The Sport Edition.
Right.
Dual exhaust tips. It's a single exhaust, but
Yeah, and the floating roof.
Floating roof.
Well, right. So you could get a two-tone exterior colors, which is kind of cool. Again,
Nissan Maxima looking.
Doesn't mess too much with the equation of the car. You just paint it different colors.
Well, it does actually a little bit. I mean, it follows that current trend of lower, wider, and that I don't know how that's going to play with the customers of the Camry, which appreciate how easy it is to get in and out of the car.
Yeah,
and the visibility.
Point.
Yeah. So,
right. Yeah. I mean, it seems incremental. So hopefully they've gone too far. And even with the styling, right? The sporty one, the XSE, right? I mean, that's the oxymoron version, the sporty Camry, right?
Yeah.
And
it follows a sporty Prius as well, right?
Sporty Prius. But it's like that styling is only reserved for that trim line,
right?
Whereas the other trim lines have a more conservative.
They're a little more conservative. They have almost they follow an Avalon look, and if you're looking at them quickly in the front, a couple of them look very similar to Avalon, and they did that well. I would say in regards like Avalon, okay, they took that almost too far with the first part of the redesign, and it was too stiff. The ride was really harsh. Now they're making a Camry sporty, like you alluded to. Are they going to go away from what's the bread and butter? Where are they alienating? Even if they're selling 900,000 units a year, they don't want to drop 50 or 60,000 people off because they're turned off.
But I think it's going to be just segregated right to that trim line. What's important, an important part about what they're doing is standard forward collision warning, standard automatic emergency braking, and I think Toyota has been a very good automaker in terms of taking this technology that is proven, that is saving lives, that is stopping crashes, and just making standard equipment on just about every new entry that they have. And when they redesign
every update, every redesign, Toyota Safety Sense P is something that's standard. Yeah, and they're leading. You look at a lot of the vehicles released at the show. They talk about collision warning. It's available.
Right.
It's available across the line, maybe. But it's still going to come out of my pocket.
Sure.
So, Gabe, why don't we talk about the Odyssey?
Actually, one more important car that we didn't mention here is the Chevy Traverse. I mean, that's a high-volume car.
Definitely.
And it may not be as important as the Camry and the Odyssey, but it still is a very major kind of player in the three-row SUV arena.
Okay, so let's get back to the Odyssey for a moment. Gabe, tell us a little bit about what stood out for this, because they have the Pacifica in the class, which tested very well for us, except the only thing that's holding it back is really the predicted reliability. And then Sienna also got an 8-speed automatic, so the category is ever evolving.
So yeah, I mean the Odyssey is full of all kinds of neat tricks inside. I mean, it has the magic seat. I mean, it can move both fore, aft, and sideways. And I think for my purposes, that's more useful than the Chrysler Stow and Go, which is ends up being a very low seat, lacking thigh support, and I also I like the fact that the Odyssey is kind of has a styling statement about it.
Yeah. The side of it, is a little more aggressive. Also, like you were saying, earlier on the floor, they hid the slider hole for for example.
I like that.
Jake, what about the infotainment system? That's a big thing for Honda, Acura. A lot of problems in our surveys with.
Well, I mean, look, we're always concerned about reliability when you throw all this technology at it, all these little motors, and actually the Odyssey, they've always struggled a little bit in terms of reliability. But when the Pacifica came out, they had a lot of really kind of innovative features. It's almost like you're in the back of an airplane or something.
Sure,
with all the features. So they throw in all those features. Honestly, they're not going to be on every one. It's going to be more like the high trim.
Top trim.
I mean, I agree with Gabe. I mean, it really comes down to those sliding seats. That's the true innovation that we saw.
Right.
And they've solved a problem that people have, which is really cool because we see a lot of times the automakers are solving problems that nobody has, right? It's like, oh, a shifter, we're going to solve that
by intercom.
Right.
It's a small vehicle.
We don't need these things. But they've solved the problem because the safest place for a child seat for a child is the center rear. And a lot of minivans don't have a center rear, or even if they do, it's very hard to get to them.
It's a tiny weird seat or something like that.
And you got to reach over, and it's very awkward. So you can slide the seat over, you can get your kid in, you can slide it back, really reconfigurable, really smart. I think it's really an innovative feature, and probably we'll see other competitors copy it. The other interesting thing about the Odyssey is
transmissions.
Well, transmissions, but I would say quietness. So Honda has always kind of lagged some of the automakers in terms of noise. They've always been kind of noisy automakers. They try to get the weight out or whatever it is, and they're promising the quietest in segments.
They made a huge splash about how quiet it is. I mean,
following CRV, because they made a big deal with CRV redesign about being quiet as well.
Yeah, I mean, apparently they stuffed the thing with so much sound deadening material there. So it's
Stay Puft Marshmallow Man of a minivan.
So there's a promise it's going to be quiet.
So we will test that and we will find out if it's really the quietest statement. I have some doubts, but we'll. Hopefully it is.
Yep.
And then there's a whole confusion about transmissions. Only the upper trim lines get the 10-speed automatic, and then the regular ones get the 9-speed automatic.
And still front-wheel drive. They're not going all-wheel drive at all. They're going to buck that, Sienna, and then also the hybrid Pacifica, which would be all-wheel drive. So, okay, so we looked at a couple key vehicles that came out for Consumer Reports. What did you guys find that was influential, really a surprise, maybe a hit, miss? Jake, want to take that one off?
For me, I am very interested in the Kia Stinger. So, I mean, they talked about Kia will have the the fastest accelerating Kia ever, right? And
that's not a high bar necessarily to broach, right?
No, well that's true, but it's it was almost hinting at some kind of sports car that no one's going to buy.
The Audi R8 of Kias.
Right. I mean, they showed sports cars before and look, I mean, I like sports cars, but honestly, there's not a huge market for them. But what they did was they showed this car, which has this presence that looks different. Not a Me Too, but actually something that looks different. It looks like a nice luxury sports sedan hatch, whatever
it's like an A7 for Kia.
It's like an A7. It's like a Panamera. It's like a the Tesla Model S kind of a look to it, and it looks different. I got into the thing. I mean, it looks really nice inside. Maybe a little too much chrome for me. I don't know, but
it's a dynamic presence-looking car.
And they promise the dynamic driving experience. And this is actually one of the things that Kia, Hyundai, I mean, they just almost have been, it's like the last step, right? I mean, it used to be they weren't reliable and they weren't fun to drive and they keep on getting more. They're fuel efficient now, and now they're, reliable and all these things. But they've never really been drivers of cars. Hopefully it is.
What do you think of that one?
For me, the Kia Stinger has been the surprise of the show. And it looks, at first, you do a double take, I mean, it's like some version of the Optima, but no, I mean, this is a whole different animal. It's a rear-wheel drive platform. It's going to have all-wheel drive as well, but it seems like a real legit sports sedan that wouldn't shame this wouldn't shame like an Infiniti Q50, for instance.
Definitely.
I mean, it looks like short overhangs, looks really purposeful, it has the right stance, the right proportions.
Right, it looks aggressive without being a slammed, pocket rocket type thing.
And
2 gas engines that we get.
Yes, and there's more significance to this. I mean, this is basically based on a smaller Genesis platform, and it's going to spawn other variants like the Genesis G70 probably. So, yeah.
So, and hang on that car for a second. We've talked about it plenty, people who watch the show, about how that market is not the most competitive market these days. I mean, especially when you look at the non-German competitors, you look at IS, which is not a real strong competitor. Nope. 250's got a little bit better, but I mean, to have a non-Me Too segment there, I mean, a car that's just really has a presence. Wow, what a cool addition to the market.
It's a niche, not quite Halo, because they have the K series, but yeah, it's actually a car that might bring people into the dealership. Right. They may end up buying a Cadenza. They may end up buying, another product. But yeah, it has a presence to it. I like that.
It has a potential of bringing a whole different kind of buyer to the Kia brand.
So the show is a little soft in some ways. What did you have another vehicle? It was something else stand out to you?
Well, I kind of like the Volkswagen Tiguan as well. The U.S. market gets a different Tiguan than the European car. It's longer. Yep. It has a 3-row. It's a 3-row vehicle. I mean, although tiny 3rd-row seats
for the little guys, the little guys and gals.
They call it a 5+2, which kind of indicates that
I climb back there. I would be eating my knees if I was in the car. But go on. What do you?
Yeah, and but another car that maybe kind of disappointed me a little bit is the Concept Infiniti QX50. And
why so?
Rather than, I mean, first of all, it's a long overdue redesign of the QX, or what used to be called the EX, and I expected it to be like related to the Q50, a rear-wheel drive kind of derivative, something that could compete with the Jaguar, BMW, Audi SUVs. Turns out it's a front-wheel drive based car. It's going to have a CVT. And that makes it a little
bit of looks like it goes. It looks aggressive.
Looks it, right? Yeah. So that's for me personally, it's a bit of a letdown.
I was impressed with the Chevrolet Traverse because GM's doing a huge revampment of their entire SUV lineup. First you had Equinox, you had Terrain get debuted here. We drove Acadia, so the same platform, but they didn't shrink the Traverse. So it's really interesting that of their triplets, the triplets are a little different.
Yeah.
So this one's actually grew a little longer than the current Traverse. You have room behind the 3rd-row seat. They fold flat. Right. It looks like a really nice vehicle, a good player. They're talking about fuel efficiency. Of course, a front-wheel drive V6 is going to get 3 miles per gallon better on the highway. All right, but let's talk real world, but still.
I think it's smart that they went that way, and I think it's smart because let's not forget that's their minivan.
Yeah.
This is their minivan. They don't have a minivan entry, so they need to make it large and useful, and I think they did that.
And why compete against in the badge engineering world of I'll just go to the GMC and this and that, and what's the quality? No, Chevy could be its own vehicle.
Right, and then there's another piece coming to that family. I mean, that's the Buick Enclave, which likely will be the size of the Traverse rather than the Acadia.
It's interesting though because when the Acadia came out, it's like they have the GMC Yukon and then they have a smaller vehicle and they're right sizing it. Okay, but this is almost the size of a Tahoe, so that's a little odd. Will it give people a trade off? It's only going to tow 5,000 pounds max, so people who need the big SUV, they're going to go with
it's a totally different animal, right? I mean, it's all about function. It's about driving a car. I mean, a Tahoe still is a truck.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have the functionality, doesn't have that.
The 3rd row, and this is great. The Traverse 3rd row, huge. So, what else, Jake? Anything else that you saw that disappointed you? There was a lot of stuff going on, some concept-y stuff.
Okay, well, I'll give you a couple of disappointments. One is going back to GMC with the Terrain. Not disappointed with the Terrain, disappointed to see the shifter is a bunch of little chiclets that you hit with your fingers. I mean, we have a lot of problems with some of these shifters that are just changing for change's sake. So this is kind of they're solving a problem we don't have.
Well, and the Equinox doesn't have that problem. It has a traditional shifter, but they freed up space and have a toggle push-pull.
Cup holder or something.
I don't know what they were thinking, but I mean, there are ways of making different kind of shifter that's intuitive. But this one is too low.
It's
hard
very
to see,
low.
hard to
Very low.
reach. You're going to have your eyes on it.
You got to look way down, see
Exactly.
that, make sure.
I spoke with one of the engineers, and he said that they have a fail-safe. If you open the door, while it's reversing, then it'll stop immediately. But if you go to a car wash, then if you open the door and then put it in drive, then you can drive with it. But still, it's just like you said, solving a problem that doesn't exist.
Right, right.
For what? A little bucket for your cell phone, 2 side by side instead of front to back cup holders, and a iPad holder.
If that.
If that.
Yeah.
What'll be interesting? They'll have an A/B test. They'll see the Chevy Equinox and how people respond to that. And people complain about the GMC, and I wonder if you'll get a shifter back, mid-cycle refresh.
Another disappointment, we were teased again by Volkswagen with another hippie van. This time the ID Buzz, which I guess they're just like randomly, Buzz I guess is good
Buzz
kill, I guess. We'll call it the ID Buzz kill. But it's a concept again. It's like how long has it been? It's been over a decade that they keep on showing these concepts of the old microbus. And again, just do it.
Right.
Just do it. Build it off of the new car platform. It doesn't have to be whiz-bang technology, whatever. Just give it a 1.8 turbo and be done with it.
This is their foreshadowing their electric push, post Dieselgate.
Exactly, and I think the diesel fiasco has been the best thing for the EV movement, electric vehicle movement. Volkswagen is doing everything about EVs and EV charging infrastructure. And I think that concept was much less about the microvan. It was more about autonomous and electric and
the passive
platform
touch steering wheel that comes in and out.
Showcase of all the Volkswagen technology.
And you're right. And that's the frustrating part about it. Because the people were excited about the minivan. They're not, I don't know if everyone's so excited about, electric. There's not a huge market for EVs right now. There's not a huge market. Everyone wants autonomous.
Right.
It's kind of like this is the technology we're showing. Right. Just give me the freaking van and the functionality.
Well, Volkswagen almost either forced or had to jump or was pushed off into it. They came out as if they're altruistic, like, oh, we're going to build out a whole system of chargers throughout the country.
Yeah.
Well, that was part of the agreement that we had to do. But it sounds great. This is their 2020 or 2026, I think. Their big push to have the electrification of their line. They have 2 7-row SUVs, 3-row SUVs, 7-seat SUVs they showed that they needed. This was huge holes in their lineup that they gave up for years.
Right.
This was fancy.
Unless your brand is Tesla, you're not going to have a huge amount of volume right now in electric.
Right.
It's totally cool that they're doing it. It's totally cool that they're developing that. But let's not forget, diesel was 25% of their sales.
Yeah.
They're not going to fill that hole with a bunch of electric cars.
Of electric cars, right. The Bolt got some kind of award at the show, and that's great. Right. But again, will it really sell? It's not going to be 25% of GM sales, and it's not going to necessarily even approach Tesla levels, even if it's going to be cheaper. So that's very true, very true. So talking about Volkswagen, great point, because it will bring us to diesel, because while Volkswagen goes away from diesel, 3 other manufacturers have diesel coming to their products. So,
Mazda CX-5 is going to have a diesel, and the Equinox and GMC Terrain are going to have Equinox. So
they're compact SUVs.
Right.
And also Ford introduced a diesel, or announced a diesel, for
the F-150.
Right.
In addition to everything else being hybrid. So.
Right. Hybrid and diesel. We're back to a couple years ago. Right. What do you think of those, Jake? Some thoughts on them?
It's really interesting because Volkswagen, they had a large market in diesels, and they're saying we're done.
Yep.
And there's a lot of other automakers that are saying, hey, come on over.
We're 50-state compliant.
And what's really interesting is that maybe no one's going to trust Volkswagen with diesels again, but there are people who love diesels.
Right.
And it's almost a falsehood to kind of compare them to electric because they're a completely different market. Yes, it's about energy efficiency, but diesels are the long haulers. Diesels are you get on the highway and you cruise 800 miles or whatever it is. You can't do that with electric. Electric are great around town. So there is a spot for that, and it'll be really interesting if people are going to go from their Volkswagen, Golf sport wagons to a small SUV, and I think
to a
maybe
CX-5 diesel possibly, right? Or a Cruise, Chevy Cruise diesel or something like that. Gabe, I found it really interesting with the F-150 in that you have Ram that's had the light duty truck with a diesel. Right. Titan came in there, the tweener diesel. So now you have F-150. What do you think of that? It's going to in the 10-speed editions, and what does it mean for Chevy?
I think a lot of people are attracted to the HD, the heavy-duty trucks because of the diesel engine. And I think giving you an entry with the light-duty pickup with the diesel engine is a very good move. The Ram is very impressive with that
exactly. Yeah.
diesel, and the F-150 is going to be just going to widen the appeal for a lot of people. And I mean, it's not going to be surprising if Chevy does the same.
Yeah, well, Chevy, so they have them in the small trucks,
right,
in the Colorado and the Canyon, but will they be forced almost into play in this section now? Or are they going to play pricing or something like that with capabilities? So that's going to wrap it up here from the Detroit Auto Show. As always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.